Hey guys, it's Jim. I just wanted to show you some more stuff in a new mix that I made for the last band rehearsal that we had. Before the last video, I was showing you this mix number 2A, and I've gone up to mix number 3F. This is pretty much just an arbitrary numbering scheme I came up with. The mix number is pretty much the number that I assigned to a public release, I guess you could call it. So every time I push it out to the rest of the guys, I number it. And when I'm working on the next one that I'm going to push out, I increase the number. And the second character, the A through F or whatever, is another numerical value for like the subversion, like A through F or whatever. So I'll usually mark a new mix if I'm along the way, A, B, C, D, you know, whatever I feel is like sort of release worthy, but maybe not quite. And maybe I want to go back and fiddle with some stuff or take a different approach here or there. So I've got queued up here is a little section of our rehearsal of Buddy Holly in both mixes. This 8th marker here. And I just wanted to quickly just demonstrate to you the difference in these mixes. They're using the same exact source material, so it's all just a matter of mixing technique and effect settings and plugins and everything. So I will be using the L3 maximizer on the final stereo bus on both mixes. This is just to even out the levels, the perceived levels, because you're always going to say, oh, something louder is better, right? So we want to counterbalance that kind of preconceived bias and say, no, these are just different sounds of the same thing. So the L3 is evening out those that final mix, so one's not significantly louder than the other, or vice versa. All right, so the original version, let's hear what this sounds.
Bang, bang, knock on the door. Hear the big bang and down on the floor. Oh no, what do we do? Don't look now, but I lost my shoes. I can't run and I can't kick. What's the matter, babe? Are you feeling sick? What's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter, babe? Are you feeling blue? And
yeah, sounds pretty good. And that's kind of why I pushed it out. It sounded good enough. But just for shiggles, I went in one day and I said, you know what? I'm getting kind of sick of this whole, 27 tracks and too many plugins and gates and everything. Primarily, it was all the gating that was driving the decision to make a new mix. Because what was happening was, like over here in the vocal area, I've got a lot of gating set up on my vocal mic, which is just a background vocal mic, so you don't really want to hear a lot coming out of that. But if you listen to what it's soloed like, you'll hear a little bit of it, of the drum bleed from the room popping out. Or just outright playing like that. You don't really want to push that over to the right edge like that, because this vocal's pushed over to the right. So, primarily I made a new mix to put in a whole lot of mute automation. And you'll see this if I zoom out. Look at this. This is my vocal track, and this is the mute envelope for all of my parts. So basically, I'm unmuting in between songs, to pick up the banter or whatever we're talking about, making notes or whatever, and then only unmute for a little vocal part. I'm not going to dare unmute these things because they sound horrible. Let's see. Maybe this will sound okay.
punishment!
Yeah, so.
Government!
There's just little like spoken / yelled lyrics in the middle of Holiday. So if I solo the entire vocal thing, bus.
President Gasman, bombs away is your punishment! Pulverize.
So it comes in when you want it to come in. You're not hearing any of the drum bleed coming in and pushing it off to the right or the left or center, wherever it happens to be panned, because that's going to offset your stereo balance, and that's going to sound like crap. Anyway, where were we? We were over in Buddy Holly. Let's see if I can pull that up. I memorized the number. Where are you? Over here, yeah. So anyway, so for reference again, whoops.
Bang, bang, knock on the door. Hear the big bang and down on the floor. Oh.
That's the original, mix 2A, and here's mix 3F, what I did the new stuff.
Bang, bang, knock on the door. You're the big bang, you're down on the floor. Oh, whoa, what do we do? Don't look now, but I lost my shoe. I can't run and I can't kick. What's the matter, babe? Are you feeling sick? What's the matter, what's the matter, what's the matter, you? What's the matter, babe? Are you feeling blue?
So you can hear everything kind of pops out a bit more. There's a couple of reasons for that. Mostly is the EQ on the guitars. The drums have an entirely different suite of plugins. I just went in one day looking through my wave set and said, hey, JJP, what's that? Jack Joseph Wig. These things are phenomenal. I cannot say enough good things about these things. CLA, Chris Lord-Alge, he's got a good stuff going on, but for my taste, I think the JJP works better on drums. I just found that, just on drums. I'm still using some CLA for vocals, so he's got it good for the vocal stuff. But for my money, I prefer the Jack Joseph Wig on the drums. They're just phenomenal. It's a little confusing at first. You should probably, read the documentation. What? Yeah, little help menu thing with the documentation. Yeah. Yeah, because I've kind of figured it out by accident that this is your input mix and this is your output mix, which is totally non-obvious. Main, master, it's like, come on. Maybe input, output, give me a break. Anyway, or maybe this is just input mix and this is the final output volume, not actually the output, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so these alone are just fantastic. Let's take a listen to the drums bus soloed between each mix. Let's go back to the original and hear that. Now, I wasn't trying to bash CLA drums before because I'm actually not using almost any of those plugins on this. I think I'm just using one here for the hi-hat and it's set to the room just for the EQ setting on it, which actually was kind of nice. So forget what I said earlier about CLA drums, but sort of don't. Because I did try doing entire mixes with the CLA drums, and I liked them at the time, but I like the JJP ones better. So, okay, so you got that in your head. Let's go over to the this guy and listen to the drums with the JJP settings, which is pretty much exclusive, for these tracks. All these guys here. I got them on the overheads, on the hi-hat, on the toms, plus some compression, a little bit of EQ on the toms, which is actually a lot of EQ on the toms. The snare drum, the top and the bottom, got some phase correction, got another phase correction on the snare to correct with the overheads. The kick, the JJP is phenomenal for kick. It's just insane. And then some EQ to push out that even more. And then final drums, we've got some phase settings to align with the vocal track, which is kind of the room mic, plus vocals. The phenomenal L2 limiter, which really brings that drum track up to the front. And I'll go into these later. So here we go. Listen to that. Listen to that kick. I think I had that even more bassy in a previous mix, but I kind of backed off on it because it was quite a bit. So if you want low end in your kick, that's the guy to go to. The kick in setting and fiddle with these knobs. Leave your low about 50. That'll feel about right. I think, I even put a high pass filter in at 46 or whatever. Just kind of tune that until your chest is not rumbling, So, so that's after. Let me see what that sounds like with and without. feel that in my bones. Good God. Okay. You really should be listening with at least a decent pair of headphones, or preferably a full studio sort of monitor setup with a subwoofer. That's what I got going on here. It's Yamaha HS80M and an HS10W. Here's the sub. Phenomenal monitors here. I love them. I've been using them for I don't know how many years. So, of course there are better, but you know, these were right in my price range, so they work for me. Anyway, so that's a phenomenal kick. Of particular importance, I paid really close attention to the snare sound in this mix. Which is individually a top and a bottom mic. And it's really difficult to kind of get these to align correctly. You can hear the top has the fundamental tone of the snare, but it doesn't quite have that smack that we're looking for. It's more like a kind of a toned hit, whereas the bottom has all the crack and the snap that we want. Hear that? So that's what I'm doing with the plugins to bring those characteristics out that I want to hear. So presence is definitely up there. All of the reverb is done with the JJP plugins, so I'm not using any track sends for reverbs. So you'll see I have no reverb track here. There's no sends. There's hardly any sends this time. Whereas before, look at all this stuff. These are all the sends. Crazy sends. Most of them are for gating, side chaining, but there's quite a bit of reverb sends here as well. So I kind of did away with that this time and tried to keep it simpler so that your snare would have its natural reverb just coming out of the snare tracks and the plugins. So I think that works well. Toms were a big part of the sound as well when they come in, of course. We'll go over those later. I got a different song I want to show you those. Hi-hat was pretty straightforward. I don't think I'm not. No, this is a crash. There we go. Yeah, the weird thing about the JJP plugins, or the cool thing I should say, is he has a different plugin for the cymbals and percussion. So he's got the shelled drums and the percussion drums, you know. So I use these cymbals and percussions one for the hi-hats, obviously. We got an HH hi-hat, you know, click right over here. So pretty much the default did it for me, but I pushed up quite a bit of the high. I guess I'm using the pan from the plugin here for the hi-hat. I don't know why I did that. Oh well, whatever. So that's what it sounds like without. Cool. It just brings it out more. Overheads, pretty straightforward. I pretty much use this for the compressor on it. Let's see what it sounds like without. So yeah, we brought up the highs quite a bit, added the compressor. Didn't use the attitude of the punch. A little bit of ambience and tone, and then just kind of equalize the volume, which is quite louder than the basic, but the input volume, but who cares? As long as it all mixes up to the track correctly. And of course that sound is augmented by the room mics coming out of the vocal mic. So if we listen to this. Completely changes the sound now, doesn't it? Right? Which was really irritating to try to mix this. So I always tried to mix with the vocals on in the drums and then adjust the plugins, you know, accordingly. So I was hardly ever just soloing all of the drums and mixing those. I maybe did that to start, but once I brought in the vocal mics, I went back and corrected everything again. So it may sound harsh or really top-endy, by itself, but combined with the room mic, I think it evens it out. But, oh yeah, let's listen to the toms.
That's for all.
Yeah, without that. Pretty cool. So I like that kind of a sound. It sounds, what I was aiming for, I'll be honest, is the Metallica Black Album tom sound, drum sound, generally. I didn't get the rest of it, but I paid close attention for the toms. So we're pushing it pretty hard there, but that's all right. It's digital. It'll survive. Once again, adding quite a bit of reverb to the toms. That's pretty much it on this one. You just use the toms plugin and push the lows and the highs up. And then the EQ on this was actually pretty important as well. So let's see what it sounds like without the EQ. Yeah, kind of muddy and out of control. So we push this in. So we definitely need that high pass filter down here around 42 to get rid of all the sub mud and pull out some of that mid mud as well. Then accentuate all the smackiness and pull out the really crazy high stuff, and then you're pretty much good. So that's that. I think these are pretty much identical settings between the two. Yeah, okay, so I pushed the low up on the floor tom a little bit more. So this is the floor tom, this is the high tom, because we don't want a whole lot of low coming out of the high tom. Push a little bit more smack into that. So I would listen to a particular part of the rehearsal where he was doing a lot of tom work and just kind of equalize the two against each other and made it sound good. Not a lot of gating. Okay, so no, I removed all the gating on the JJP, so you can see we're at min here. And I did some... What do we got here? Oh, yes, okay. This is where I did some crazy stuff for actually bringing in the toms when I want them to come in and not having them just play constantly. If we solo here. Yeah. So you're only hearing like really hard snare hits or whatever, which is totally acceptable for the high tom because it's right above the snare. But you're not going to get much of that out of the floor tom. So what we did is we did another one of these parameter modulation tricks. I find the C1 Compressor Gate, this guy in mono, is fantastic for automating because we've got this tuned monitor. So you flip the EQ into sidechain mode, and then you get this nice filter functionality. So you can tune in that gate on that filter. So let's see, where are we at? So let's listen to the sidechain of the high tom. So you can hear it's just trying to listen for that thing. So I tried to find the points where it would make the most amount of impact in the frequency spectrum when the tom was being played versus when it wasn't. Which is kind of the purpose of these sidechain things. Let's see. I know it was after, yeah. So here's where I during rehearsal, I just wanted to fiddle with the mixer. So I asked the drummer to do some tom heavy riffing. You can hear that. So that's pretty much where I spent the majority of my time tuning the toms. Pretty useful, for post mix. It was useful for rehearsal mix as well on the board, so. Then in the vocal/room mic, you get that nice ambience coming from the room, I guess. You can hear most of the impact coming from that frequency range that I have it tuned to. So we're trying to reject as much as possible that isn't a tom and bring out what is a tom, which is easy for humans to do, but very difficult for computers and, effects processors to do. So, yeah. Once again, I could have, spent the time to go in and add some automation like I did with a vocal track. Like you could just add a mute envelope, and I could have just said, okay, it's actually really easy. You hold shift, it says insert envelope point, drag to move. So I shift click, and then I just drag down. And at this point it is muted. At this point it is, so when you drag it down, it's muted. When you drag it up, it's unmuted. So you can see there. So that's all you have to do, really. You just shift click and you're just drawing envelopes in there. It's pretty cool. Takes a little bit of time to kind of flip through the whole, session looking for tom hits. So like, okay, here's one on the floor tom. It gets a little trickier in the high tom because it's kind of close to the snare. So you see some of the snares are peaking up, but okay, so here's an obvious tom hit. Right. But sometimes it's a little blurred, like when you're doing, nope, not there. Okay, so there's one, maybe a few in here, I'm not sure. Floor tom's more obvious. Yep, at the intro to Enter Sandman, of course. This is another one of those key moments in the rehearsal, in the mix, where I concentrated on the tom sound, except we did it kind of poorly that time, so we did it a second time. Love it. Then, of course, again, after the solo's done. I think that sounds great. Anyway, let's see. All right, I think that's enough with the drums. Let's see, on the vocals, I pretty much kept the same thing with the CLA2A, SSL, and CLA vocals. Let me check over here on the other track. Let's see, what do we got? CLA2A, SSL, and I didn't end with the because I was using the CLA vocals to do the reverb, and you'll see that over here, and a little bit of stereo spread. So you can see we got the reverb on tight setting just a little bit, and we got some stereo widening effect in there just a little bit. Again, not too much. You don't want to go crazy with that sort of stuff. So once again, no reverb plugins. That's pretty much there for that. And some other cool stuff I can show you is, let's see. Yes, I used one effect in Crawling in the Dark. You'll probably recognize this instantly. Let's see, am I all unsoloed and good? Yep, okay.
So when and how will I know?
I love that. So that's just a vocal delay. That's a send over to this vocal delay track. So if we just solo this guy, where did I go? Over here. Here I am. So if we just listen to this. Cool. That's kind of a high feedback ratio. It's actually over here, this H delay plugin is just fantastic. 66% reverb feedback, sorry. This dial is interesting. You can get some really wacky stuff going on with here because you've got 0 to 100% feedback, and then you've got above that up to 200% feedback, which means exactly this. can make it get louder over time instead of getting quieter, which is a greater than unity feedback. Of course, unity feedback 100, you're going to be feeding back 100% of the signal back on itself, which means it's going to be an infinite loop, essentially. So listen to that. Well, it's not perfect because... All right, shut up. That's enough. Well, it's not perfect because we've got some modulation going on here and some filters, so it is going to destroy the signal a little bit. But if I turned all that other stuff off and etc., then you would get a perfect loop. And if you push it up a little bit more, it'll keep getting a louder loop. So that's that. And it's really fun to play with the feedback setting and the delay time when it's actually going, because you're effectively changing like think of it like a tape speed. Like you've got a circular buffer of tape and you're playing that back quicker or slower, so you're actually adjusting the pitch of the delays over time, and you can kind of hear that in the modulation as well. So let's turn off the modulation and play with that a bit. It's kind of like playing with those delay pedals on the guitar stuff. You can get some really wacky stuff going. Anyway, so I just kind of dialed in that. This is very specific to this Crawling in the Dark song, so I kind of left it at like 660 or somewhere around there, milliseconds, because I don't have any host tempo maps for this, because it's just one big raw recording, so it's not a studio session or anything. Otherwise, I would have just locked it to the project BPM. But anyway, and here you can see again, I've used the, on my vocal track, just the backgrounds, I've used the mute envelopes. So let's see, we'll listen to this. Have to go. Oh, I didn't. Have to go. How much longer till I finally know? 'Cause I'm looking, but I... So on my vocals, I put quite a bit more emphasis on the stereo spread, because that kind of pushes it back in the mix. Because background vocals are supposed to be background. They're not supposed to be in your face in the foreground. So I push those back and put some pan automation on them. So you can see generally I'm on the right side when I'm just talking or whatever, so you know who's on what side. But when it goes into song mode, we're done with the banter, I kind of push it into the center, depending on the song. Sometimes, yeah, most of the time I just leave it on the right side. For Come Out and Play, I actually pushed it out on the left because I'm doing these kind of important speaking parts here, like this. What did I do? Oh, that. Duh. You gotta keep them separated. And that kind of reflects what the album sounds like a little bit. So, some other cool vocal stuff. On Brain Stew, since this is such a simple song, I'm just like, there's really no reason why this shouldn't be as close to the record, the studio version, as I can get it. That may just be my OCD and obsession and all those sorts of stuff, but whatever. So what we got here is, you probably noticed this vocal doubler effect from Waves is generally bypassed in the main vocal track here. And this is just for this song, and I've got a bypass envelope. Reaper is fantastic, and then it lets you add envelopes to control virtually every single part of the mix. It's just really a whole lot of crazy amount of control. So you can see I'm clicking on the envelopes button, and just you can see all the different, every single effect that has something that you can vary, that you have control over, you can put an envelope on. So okay, good. So this one on this Doubler 2 plugin, we have the bypass, and we can just kind of make that visible. Bypass envelope. So essentially what we're doing is we're turning on and off that doubler plugin. So I'll give you a taste of the clean sound.
On my own, here we go.
Right. And then here's the doubled sound.
The clock is laughing in my face.
Kind of cool, huh? Except the problem is, of course, again, the drum bleed into the mic. So we're getting a stereo spread doubler sound on the drums. Hence the reason for the envelope. Not only to, add it to the effect, add it to the vocal, but to remove it from the drums when we're not singing. Like this.
Drive. The clock is laughing in my face.
So once again, bring the drums into the center and bring the vocals out to the side, and hope that it's not too noticeable on the drum rims when the vocal is singing. So let's see what that sounds like.
The clock is laughing in my face. A crooked spine. My senses dulled.
Pretty cool. Why add a doubler? Why not? Actually, because the vocalist is left by the time I'm working on the mix. I'm working on it maybe a day or two later, and he's an hour away. I can't really call him in to add another vocal track or double it up just for a rehearsal. Nobody's gonna give a shit. So we just do fun stuff like that and play around. So it's pretty fun. What else we got? Yeah, pre-effects envelopes are pretty cool. So these are just for like simple volume boosts for the whole track. Except you're boosting the whole level going into all the plugins, not coming out of all the plugins. I prefer not to use fader envelopes because I like to play with the overall volume of the faders here. I don't want them, moving on their own. I kind of like to leave these levels set and add other envelopes to take care of the problem parts.
I'm having trouble trying to sleep.
So if I disable that.
I'm having trouble trying to sleep. I'm having trouble.
Yeah, so we're just feeding more signal in to get a louder sound. I did the same thing with the guitars. Let's see, what do we got? Volume pre-effects, yeah. So I had like 2 dB to the guitar tracks because the guitars on that studio album are crazy loud. You'll also notice we have these little effects labels and that the guitar tracks for this whole song are separated out. That's because I wanted to add a really hard gate on the guitar tracks to make it really cut and dry, like the studio version sounds. Because it's just, darn it, there's like no string noise, there's nothing going on between these things. So I kind of wanted to replicate that.
I'm having trouble trying to sleep. I'm counting sheep but running out.
And I cut up the vocal tracks just to remove some of the room noise and whatever. What's amusing is that the vocal tracks actually pick up the striking of the strings of the guitar because the room is so freaking quiet. We don't have anything going on. There's no speakers or loud guitars playing. You're actually hearing the strings of the guitar being smacked. So let's see if you can hear that. Yeah. Can you hear the guitars doing that? It's crazy. And you're actually hearing a little bit of the mix coming out of his earphones when he's sitting next to the microphone. So it's like, that's how quiet the room is when the drums aren't playing, of course. Which is a good thing. You always want a lot of isolation for your recordings. Otherwise, you're just going to have a mess of a mix, like I said before in the other video. I did notice some problems with the doubler. Let's check that out here. Let me see if you can notice it too. Let's just solo this vocal track and where the doubler comes in. So.
A crooked spine, my senses dulled, past the point of delirium.
You hear the problem? It doesn't look obvious from the meters, but it sounds left heavy from the left channel is louder than the right channel.
A crooked spine, my senses dulled.
But if we look at the meters, that doesn't really reflect what we're hearing. You know, they look equal in power level, you know, overall power level, but it's definitely louder in the left side. So what I did is I decided to throw on Ozone 5 has a fantastic meter. It includes what you want. These DBTP, True Peak. These are pretty much monitoring what your ear is more sensitive to. So it's not the actual volume raw amplitude of the signal. It's adjusted for what you are sensitive to, you know, including more mid-range and excluding the low and high. So the mid-range has more of an impact on these meters. So here, we'll play that back again, and then you'll see that these meters kind of tell the true story.
A crooked spine, my senses dulled, past the point of delirium. On my own, here we go.
So yeah, definitely this one's louder. Remember that everything's negative scale, going from 0 down to infinity in decibels. So a smaller number on the positive end is louder. So this one's always been louder than the right one. This one never peaked up past it. I did try to accommodate for this in the effect setting itself. So when we unbypass this, we have like a little bit of 2.7 gain to pull down the left side to make it match, you know, with the right side. I think 3.3 is about right decibel wise. There's some other effects going on that it's not direct. It's not a direct, you know, minus 3 dB change in amplitude. So you can see we've got a little bit of just sample delay and then a little bit of detuning and just a tiny amount of modulation to kind of make it unbalanced. A little bit of EQ as well.
It's spine, my senses dulled.
You can see we have them hard panned left and right. So this is the direct or the original dry signal, and this is the modified delayed stereo signal, I guess, on the right side.
It's spine, my senses dulled, past the point of...
So I want to bring this right side up, but I want them kind of even. So, and I don't want to bring the whole volume of the track down just to accommodate for their relative volumes. You know, see the problem I'm facing here? It's because if we compare...
It's spine.
If we compare the doubled...
A crooked spine.
That overall volume to a regular...
A tuppence spun out in my room.
Yeah, so it's much louder over here.
On my own, here we go. My senses dulled.
Yeah, we got a little quieter there. So I think I want to solve that by adding just a simple gain. And, it's called, yeah, volume. Yeah, this filter is just fantastic. Reaper comes with these built-in hard-coded effects. And so they're just really simple, like gain adjustment. So we just add your value in there and bring that back up after the doubler. And we'll rename that to doubler gain, just so we know that that's tied to that one. Which is a really cool feature. Again, you can rename effects instances, so you can give them more purposeful names like overhead phase or, you know, vocal phase or something like that. I find it helpful, like, oh, it's the third CLA plugin or it's the second, you know, SSL plugin, whatever. Kind of name them after what their purpose is. So let's see. Okay, I just thought of an easy way to do this. We're going to look at this. Select all points. Okay, so we've just got a big envelope for this doubler 2 bypass. And essentially we want to add the gain when we've got the effect added. So we select all points, we copy points, then we add a new, I like to just open up the volume with the V key, V for volume, and then look at effects parameters, doubler gain. We'll copy it to the bypass for that. So we're just going to bypass this effect normally. So actually we select the whole track and then paste, and then we copy that envelope over to this. So we've got a nice duplicate bypass functionality going on here. So my gain is bypassed until my stereo effect is enabled, and then they're both unbypassed at the same time.
And you said, oh no.
So
On my own. And you said,
so then we just have to set the right amount of correction gain. So maybe 3 dB.
on my own, here we go. Mine is set on overdrive.
Very cool. Just solved our problem with some simple envelope copying.
Clock is laughing behind the point of dumping spun out this dry. The point of on my own.
Sounds good to me. That's pretty much exactly. Okay, so we went a little bit harder with that one. So maybe +4 would sound better. But maybe we're adding a little bit more signal in with that right side, so you know, you just kind of fudge it.
Past the point of delivery. On my own, here we go. On my own, here we go. On my own, here we go. On my own, here we go.
Still a little quiet. Let's try pushing it up a little more.
On my own, here we go. On my own, here we go. On my own, here we go.
Yeah, I like it. So there you go. That's a simple way to solve that problem. If you were paying attention, following along. We just selected all of these envelope points from the stereo bypass, the doubler bypass, and created a new bypass envelope for this little gain plugin, a little simple volume plugin, and pasted those envelope points in there so they bypass and unbypass at the same exact points. Pretty cool. Although in retrospect, I should have used a different approach. I should have used the, I guess, the wetness knob control. Because bypass is sort of like an on-off button for a piece of audio hardware. You know, you're kind of turning the power off and turning it back on again, and that makes some kind of clicky and poppy effects coming out of your mix because the plugin is reinitializing itself when you unbypass it, etc. So it's actually better to have a softer way of controlling that via the wet and dry mix, if you know what I'm saying. So your effect is always enabled. You're just switching it to dry mode instead of wet mode. Does that make sense? That's a little difficult. In bypass mode, the DAW makes some choices and you know, kind of disables the plugin to reduce the CPU workload. So that would have audible effects in your mix. Here we're kind of lucky, we don't hear it very much.
My mind is set.
Yeah, I heard a little click in there, so.
My mind is set on overdrive. The clock is.
Yeah, it clicks when it pops back in. So I think that's probably because it was muted on a non-zero point and coming back in on a non-zero point. So the waveforms are kind of like, you know, hey, what'd you do to me? I like jumped through time. It's pretty much what it's doing. Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it. So it's like time out, time in. And it's like, oh, well, the last signal you gave me was all this crap, and now I'm coming in with this stuff. I didn't get to react to all that silent stuff in between. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Let's see. I love this song. Playing it. It's got so much energy. Let's just listen to that.
What have we done with innocence? It disappeared with time. It never made much sense. Adolescent president.
Pretty cool. Let's AB again against the old mix. 1232.3. Where am I? Mama. Where the hell did it go? Oh, there's 7. What was it? 1230. Derp. What was it? 1232.3. Jesus. Okay, there we are. Yeah, kind of all over the place, level-wise. Much better.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
This is a fantastic plugin, this G-Snap. It is completely 100% free, so there's no reason to not try it out. The only disadvantage is I have the x86 version, which is not 64-bit compatible with my x64 DAW, but regardless. This is effectively auto-tune for cheapos. Basically, I've got it on the vocal track, just applying a little bit of correction to some maybe questionable notes. Let's see.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
Let's see if we set it to 100%. What happens?
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
Yeah, a little robotic there.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
So,
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
okay, so you see this little jump into that note? This note's probably not in the scale. I'm too lazy to figure out what actually scale we're playing in. It's C-sharp minor in original tuning, but we're down a half step, so we'll call that C minor. All right, so if we say C minor, set threshold to fill gaps, this is really cool. This will basically disable notes that shouldn't be heard in that scale. So we got C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat. This is our C minor scale. And essentially, you can set the... Why isn't it changing? So basically we say, okay, I shouldn't be hearing these notes in this scale. And it will correct to, you know, the lower note or the higher note, depending on how far above or below that threshold it is. So it says anything in this frequency range is going to be pulled down to C. So we're never going to hear a C sharp. And everything in this frequency range is going to be pulled up to a D. So we're never going to hear that C sharp again.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
Yeah, so you can see that kind of chopped it down to that C. It's pretty cool stuff. Of course, you don't want to set an overall fixed scale for the entire freaking song. That would be completely stupid. So that's the annoying part of these pitch correcting plugins, and is why I don't kind of play with those scales, because I would have to adjust the scale for every single song, for every single bit, including all the keys. Just no, forget it. Not going to do it for 25 songs in one mix for a rehearsal. It's just... And besides, the point of the rehearsal mix is to hear where you're screwing up and where you're doing well. So correcting vocally is not going to do it, which is why I only put these vocal correction plugins on the later mixes, so that we can have a good sounding mix versus this is kind of what we sound like, you know. Yeah, if that made sense. Okay, so that's pretty much all I really have to... Oh, sorry, almost forgot. These NLS channel stereo bus. these are kind of the icing on the cake for this mix. Basically what we've got here is stereo bus emulation of an actual analog console. And the big part of this that you want to get in here is the drive knob. Let's see if it, yeah. So yeah, it's pretty much the same kind of the same effects, the same parameters for the different flavors, I guess you could say. I'm not exactly sure which consoles are which names. They like to mess these around. This is probably a Neve. I don't know. This is an SSL, definitely. It's got those stylistic knobs. Maybe I'm not even going to guess. Everybody's going to tell me I'm wrong, so whatever. So I just chose the SSL desk because I already got the SSL EQs and I like the way those sound. So why not use their analog buses? So this is sort of a cheapo way to do analog summing, which is different than digital summing, of course, blah, blah, blah. We're not even going to get into that. But essentially what this gives you is a little bit of that analog punch and I hate to say warmth, but I'm going to say warmth in the overall sound. I just put those on the individual buses, like the drums here. The bass has its own dedicated track and or bus, and it ends with the NLS, the guitars, the NLS, and the vocals, the NLS. Let's get rid of that isotope ozone I was just using for metering. Where you can really hear a difference with the NLS is in the guitars. So let's take a listen to that. You can hear it brings out more of that mid character. We really like that. On the bass, it's kind of noticeable here as well. Let's see. Brings a little bit more low end. Gives it a nice tone. I like that. Drums. I'll be totally honest, I'm not hearing a significant difference there. I'll just leave that alone. I hate it when people are telling you to listen to stuff and they can't hear themselves. I'll be honest, I can't hear that, so we'll just call that a wash.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Tied to a wheel, a finger's gotta feel. Bleeding.
I can hear a subtle change in there, very subtle. So let's not rave about it on the vocals. But for guitars, definitely there's a difference there because we're using more of that range that it's, affecting. Yeah, definitely a difference there. So that's that for the mix. One more thing I wanted to show you real quick. This is Reaper specific, by the way. We'll just go into the preferences bar. You probably noticed the way I was zooming in around, kind of flying all over the place. That is thanks to this specific setting. You go down here, scroll all the way down to editing behavior. And in this version 4.591, whatever, this is horizontal zoom center. So these are sort of how your mouse, what it controls. The horizontal zoom center and the vertical zoom center. So when you're moving using the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, by default it is on edit cursor or play cursor. And I'll show you the difference here. When we're on this mode, if I just click the zoom in button, if I scroll in, you see it's zooming in specifically on the play cursor or the edit cursor, whatever you want to call that. It doesn't care where my mouse cursor is, which is kind of, I want to say, jarring, if you're not used to that sort of thing. Maybe you will be used to it in other, editing packages, but I prefer the more obvious zoom in on the mouse cursor. So ignore wherever the play cursor is and just use the mouse cursor, which lets me do things like this. So wherever my mouse is, it's zooming in. So that lets me do crazy stuff like zoom out of the right side, zoom into the left side, zoom out of the right side. So I'm kind of leapfrogging around the mix, you know? So I can just kind of zoom in and jump around and figure out where I am really quick. And I personally love that. So that's been a big help for me. Also, another important thing, let's see, control mouse wheel over in the left side. Wherever your mouse cursor really matters, the position of it matters when you're doing mouse wheel stuff. You may not be used to that in other Windows programs because it's actually non-standard Windows behavior. That's more of a Linux thing. I've used some Linux desktops and they do that behavior. They change the behavior based on where the mouse cursor is, not where the focus was last selected. So if you're to the left of the splitter bar, mouse up and down, mouse wheel up and down will move you up and down. They will not zoom. Whereas over here, they will zoom without holding any modifier keys, which is extremely distracting until you get used to it. So you want to hold control mouse wheel to do your zooming in over here, and it does the same exact thing over here as well. So that really doesn't matter. I think Alt moves you, forward and backwards through the mix, and over here Alt does that as well. So okay, Shift doesn't do anything. So control mouse wheel. Oh, Alt was selecting the menu, stupid. All right, so control mouse wheel, I like to, zoom in my track so I get all these little nice controls up here. Going any bigger than that is kind of pointless unless you really want to have fine detail control in your envelope poking and whatever. So, but yeah, anyway, the thing I wanted to show you is this very important drop down. You see this little triangle guy? There are actually 3 states here. This totally threw me for a loop the first time. In the default state, you are fully expanded. And then in this wonky middle state, you are compacting the view of all the children, but they're not hidden. So you're trying to figure out, why can't I zoom in here? And, control zooming doesn't change these because you're in this wonky half state. And then, of course, when you go full collapse, you obviously know there's a problem there. So if you click this, 3 times, you're fine. But if you only click it once and you're expecting it to be a toggle and you don't see any difference at first, you're like, okay, I didn't see any difference. But just know that could be tripping you up and figuring out, why the hell can't I zoom into my freaking tracks here? It's like everything else is zoomed. Why are these special? What's going on? Help. So just a helpful little note there. That's the guy you want to play with. I'd be scrolling around through these confusing option dialogues like, where is this stupid say? I don't understand what's going on. Yeah. Anyway. So. Anything else? I don't think so. Just the LNLS. The L3 went over that last time. 16-bit, no dither. JGP plugins. JGP bass. Oh, this is a cool one. This is pretty much the main bass sound. So let's see here. Very cool. I like that sound. So we're treating it like a DI and just pushing up the highs. A lot of compression on the bass. Compress the crap out of bass. Always. For rock, I guess. I was playing before with the sub. This is a really effective control. So be very careful with it. So if you have absolutely no sub going on, then you'll want to pull this in for your bass track. Just listen to this. Crazy amount of sub for that thing. I had that on at -20 before, and it was dominating the low end of the mix plus that kick. So I had to pull out the low end in that EQ on the kick and turn off that sub control to get the sub under control. I put on my headphones. I'm normally listening with these studio monitors, so it's actually pushing air and getting to my ears using the room. But when you put on headphones, it's a whole different experience. So when you're mixing with headphones and you've got decent headphones that can reproduce bass or sub, oh my gosh, it's just overwhelming. It's like my skull is shaking with all this sub going on. So I'm like, okay, I definitely got a problem there. So I probably don't have my subwoofer, you know, what do you call it? Brain fart. I don't have it tuned or calibrated. That was the word I was looking for. Jeez. I'm just kind of sitting here in an office / bedroom room, and you know I don't have great room treatment or hardly any room treatment at all. So I'm trying to figure out where my subwoofer bass problems are coming from.
Guitar and play Mr. Jones and me.
Blah. And wank.